Hello, my name is Mike Curry. It's September 2015 and I'm doing a little tour of the Kemp Road car drag. And what you see in front of me is where I'm starting, and it's at the Steel Ford used car store. And what's kind of neat about this little facility is it looks like sort of what you'd see in the movies, or sort of like a 70s style used car lot. So it's kind of a neat little piece of history, which is still in active use today. And they have a lot here where there's approximately 100 vehicles, mostly late model, rental buybacks, that type of thing that they sell off this lot. Anyways, we're gonna start our tour here because it is at the base of Kemp Road, and we'll check out some other spots as we go along. So you can see they got the little chairs out front, little deck. It's kind of neat, it's kind of old school. And we'll go along here. You can see a lot of the other vehicles. Now across the way there, you can see the huge service department for the Ford Lincoln dealer. There's no more Mercury at this date and time after the financial meltdown. So a lot of stores were amalgamated into just Ford and Lincoln stores. Such as this one here, where it used to be a Wood Motors Ford, and there used to be a Lincoln and Mercury store up the road. The Lincoln and Mercury are gone, but Lincoln has been making a lot of vehicles which have a lot of styling that more and more younger people are buying. So they're sort of doing a good job at what you know, at attracting the younger buyer. So you can see on one end of the showroom they have the Lincoln, and on the other side they have the Ford. So they have them a little bit mixed in. And as we go along here, you'll see lots of Ford Mustangs, and the Ford Escapes are a real popular SUV. The SUV market right now is pretty much on fire. So everything is leaning towards SUVs. Smaller SUVs, not SUVs like you thought of SUVs when I was growing up, like the Suburbans, those type of vehicles, but more SUVs. You know, the smaller the better. People just like all-wheel drive, and they like to be sitting up high. So we're just gonna go around here. There's a Lincoln SUV. What's interesting is see these Lincolns backed up here, and right behind, because it's kind of strange times in the car business, right here is an electric charging station. So right now we're at a point where electric cars are starting to come onto the market, and I wouldn't say they're a huge portion of the market right now, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years if some government programs come out and start promoting electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles a little bit more. So move on from here and drive along here. There's some Ford F-150s, F-250s along the front line here, and the F-150 would be the best-selling truck that's available right now, and they've held that title for a long time. Now up across here, you'll see in front of me is actually a big Subaru store, and that was built, it was 2 or 3 years ago now. And what's interesting is Subaru has really, you know, they're in expanding in growth mode right now. And only a few years ago, Subaru wouldn't have warranted a store like that. So they just didn't have that kind of market share. So you can really see the increase in market share. And a lot of it is their all-wheel drive technology. More and more people seem to like all-wheel drive. And they were in that market for many, many years. It's just, there seems to be that quest for their type of product now. So you can see they have a huge showroom. They have some neat products. You know, well, we'll say they have some great products out. I'm just gonna drive along here. A lot of these cars are used cars. Some of them are new cars, used cars. As we drive along here. This is kind of a interesting, just to give you an example of the smaller SUVs. See, people are looking for vehicles like this one you see in front of me, which has been a big hit for Subaru, and it's called a XV, and you'll see there's quite a few of those on the front line. And they're sort of interesting because they're really not like you would think of a giant SUV of the past. They're just more of just a small little SUV. So as we go along here, we're just going to take a little tour around their little section here. See what they have going on. I imagine over here it looks like these are some of their recent trades or used cars, that type of thing. Maybe even some service cars. They're all kind of pointed inwards. So there's an older Subaru Legacy wagon. They were a pretty popular model that they sold, but they've expanded their model lineup pretty significantly over the last few years. So we'll see what happens to them. Everyone's, you know, fighting for market share, and I think they have a good product to do the job. So we're gonna go on to our next store here as we drive up the road. And one big supporting business is Dent Wizard for paintless dent removal. Well, they've expanded into doing work on small, what we call blow-ins in the industry. So they built their own little shop, and what it is a little shop where they can do dentless paint removal, or they can do body, you know, light duty body work is what I would call it. So they have a relatively small shop here, but a suitable store for doing this type of work. I'm just gonna turn around here, because next to us, what's interesting is another company that's on a rise, and it is Mitsubishi. So they're kind of the wild card in the business right now. They've been in Canada for quite a while. They used to sell under the Chrysler banner. So they used to sell these Colts and that type of stuff that was sold under Chrysler, but it was actually Mitsubishi. So they've been around, they've just been under the radar. And now the company is a very, very large company, and their car portion is quite small. And they would like to, you know, they want to grow that portion of their business. So what you'll see is right now they have a Halifax store, a Dartmouth store rather, but they just opened this Halifax location. But this location was a former car dealership like years and years ago, but then it was a temporary, it was a used car lot, and then it was a temporary location for the Audi store while they were building it. So right now it's a little bit tight, so I can imagine they'll only be here for a couple years. And what's happening in this day and age is that the manufacturers are really pressuring the dealers to build big facilities. So everyone wants big, big, big. The manufacturers do anyway. So I don't know if they'll stay there for too long. We'll get another scoop of them and when I loop around. So I want to show across the road there's Carquest Auto Parts, which is a pretty big parts franchise that's across the country. I notice they say now open Saturday and Sunday, which is a bit of a trend that's happening in our industry. A lot of Sunday store openings and that sort of thing. And it's interesting because the car business provides jobs not just from the dealership level, but all these other companies. Like, so many people have cars now. At least, you know, most car companies households are 2-car households, and many are 3 or more. You can see in front, this is the Mitsubishi store. It says now open, that sort of thing on there. It's not a huge facility. I don't think there's too many cars out front because they're doing construction along here, so they seem to have cleared off their front line a little bit there. Now the next dealership, I think, and I'm sure it still will be, is a huge success story. Because at the time, this next brand, Hyundai, when they first came to Canada back in 1987, or 1985 rather, they were not the best brand in the world. They had kind of a bad reputation. The cars were not very well built. They were falling apart, that type of thing. So for them to come from that to where they are today is actually quite remarkable. They are a pretty amazing company, and they've been selling basically on par with a lot of the Japanese brands. So not as good like as Toyota and Honda yet, but they really are eating into a lot of that market share, which has warranted some large facilities. So this facility was just expanded recently, and they have that size. They have the Carquest brand, which is a high end, like an over $100,000 Hyundai, which is not a big seller, but it's it happens to be, you know, it's something that they built because just to show that they can. So we're just gonna turn around here. Every manufacturer has its own sort of gimmicks or you know, trying to attract business. So for Hyundai, for example, they're showing right here on the sign, as you'll see, it says $89.95 for a 2015 Hyundai Accent. See inside for details, because there's a lot of cash rebates, and then they take out the freight and PDI. So there's a lot of ways that manufacturers tend to like to advertise cheap prices, and then, you know, consumers do have to kind of figure them out in some ways. So that is where I'm going to end video number 1. And in conclusion, so watch out for video number 2 in just a couple minutes.